Dr. Reynolds, I mean, the last time that you chimed in, you discussed what that committee usually is. So if you could share that, but I know like the last meeting, why it came back up was because I guess the board in the past, along with the union, used to like I guess meet together some ways, and it's supposed to go through the personnel committee, which is why we were bringing it back up and trying to get it back as existing so that we can go forward with meeting in that way. But I remember Dr. Reynolds, you shared what usually happens, and because those charges haven't been developed yet anyway, because the committee is not functioning yet.
Just one point of correction, Madam President. I said I don't know what the history of the Personnel Committee was in this district.
True. Yes.
I did state that I do not recommend that we hold one because all matters of personnel are confidential. But at this point, it's up to the board whether you're going to have it or not in existence.
Okay.
Antoinette?
Tanya?
I believe it's written in the contract with the union that we have to have meetings with them on a monthly basis, which through the personnel committee. So that was why we kind of had to bring it back so that we wouldn't be in violation of the contract. Maybe Carol can chime in on this, but I think that was really the reason why we were bringing it back.
That's my understanding as well. The teachers' agreement has a term in there which says that the union and committee shall meet. And I believe, I can't recall if it's once a month or at another frequency, but that is why you're bringing the committee back. And that would be a committee, it would be recommended that that committee was only board and staff so that there were no personnel issues that were discussed publicly. So that would alleviate perhaps some of Dr. Reynolds' concerns.
All right, thank you. All right.
So just to follow up on that, so then that means that the discussions in that committee are all confidential and would not be specific policy things like hiring practices or evaluation standards or things that could be more generally discussed in the public. Is that correct? I would assume those kind of topics would then have to move to a public meeting. Is that right?
That's sort of what I would think, but again, this is a new commit. How it's being discussed, this is new to me, so I am not 100% sure.
Carol, would that have to be public, the smaller discussion with only 3 board members instead of not, the entire board? Having that type of discussion based off of communications with employees and possibly specific situations. Would that have to be discussed in public if no decisions are made until, the recommendation obviously to the full board as a whole? Would that, oh, there you are. Would that have to be something that is a discussion in public if it was 2 or 3 board members on the committee?
So pursuant to your policy, you hold advisory committees. So they are all advisory and nothing would be voted on until it went to your whole board. As far as the open meetings law is concerned, a meeting that consists of less than a quorum, which for your district would be 3. So 3 or less board members with other members of the staff would not trigger the open meetings law requirements. But if you wanted the personnel committee to also handle more general aspects that Ms. Leonardo just raised, then it could move, it could be fluid. So there could be sections that were not with the public and sections that were.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Carol.
So I just wanted to bring that up when you're considering the charges, that it's clear if there would be public portions or not, because obviously for me, if it was policy related, then there might be some members of the public who would want to
Would be
attend.
interested in hearing it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Terry, I did see your hand was up.
Yes, I saw Ivy had her hand up as well, so I'll defer to
I'm
Ivy
sorry.
if I could speak right after Ivy's done.
No, I just wanted to point out what Ms. Melnick was referring to about members of staff. You would need, correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, you would need at least four staff members, so that it would be more board members, more staff members than board members, to not have the open meetings law kick in.
Right. Well, what I believe what Ivy is referring to is that if it is a standing committee of the board where it's only board members, then that has to always be, and that does follow open meetings law. So there's a lot of nuances to this. And in order to ensure that it was following your policy, following the open meetings law, if you had 3 or less board members in total, and 4 or more staff members, you would be within your authority to meet and not have it be noticed and public and etc.
All right, thank you.
So Antoinette,
Terry.
are we finished with this discussion on the Personnel Committee? Because I know we have a item on the agenda, and I know Chris brought it up as part of her comments, but I was just going to suggest if we could defer any further conversation of this until the portion of that meeting, so that we could proceed.
We are doing that. Is that why you raised your hand?
That is why I raised my hand.
Okay. I believe Katie's next, Tracy.
So actually, do you want to go with the, so Katie was third, this was second. I let her go first because the first speaker wasn't here, but I do see Twin B that I do believe is the first speaker because I'm told that that's part of her email address. So do you want to go with the first speaker? Okay. I'm going to let her in now. Shamika, are you in? You're muted.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Shamika Matherin. I'm the Vice President of the ECP PTA. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to address the board. This evening, I would just like to discuss on behalf of ECP some of our concerns with respect to the program overall. ECP, the Early Childhood Program, obviously we view as the foundation of our district. It's where families are introduced to Greenburgh Central School District and where we either grow roots in this district or we begin to make a quick exit or a plan to exit the district. And obviously our desire is to make sure that families will commit to the district. One of the, or I will say the main concern is the current setup of ECP, having our children in separate buildings, some at Highview and some at Lee F. Jackson. And we understand we're working under unprecedented times and working within our means, but we want to make sure that there is equity in the program, that the children at ECP, whether it's at Highview or Lee F. Jackson, are being given the same opportunities, being given the same resources, whether they're inside the classroom or outside of the classroom. And I will say that the teachers are in the classrooms doing outstanding jobs in nearly impossible circumstances, but we want to make sure there's equity in the program, wherever these children are located, and that there's transparency. Parents are obviously concerned that the children at Lee F. Jackson for ECP are currently quarantined, the school as a whole, whereas the children in Highview, only one class has been quarantined. We feel that there could have been more information given, more direct information as to why there was such a distinction in those situations. But again, our main concern is to make sure there's equity and transparency and that the district is doing all it can to support the ECP program. If I can continue, I will.
Oh, yes, sure. Please go ahead.
Okay. I will say one of the topics that comes up constantly is the lack of a playground at Lee F. Jackson for ECP, which may sound like a minor concern, but for the child in the ECP program at Lee F. Jackson who does not have that opportunity, it isn't minor. And again, just to really instilling in the families that there is a commitment to the development of children on all levels, again, whether it's inside or outside of the classroom, it is something that we feel that should have been prioritized and can still be prioritized. One suggestion that was made is that the fairly new playground that was erected at the main ECP building be moved over to Lee F. Jackson so that resource is there. And I'll end just by saying again, we're committed to doing whatever we can to support the board in making sure that these things happen, that these are addressed. But we do want to know again that the board and that the district is exhausting every resource to support ECP, and that ECP is not overlooked, and that the impact of these new families coming into the district are not underestimated. Because again, we can build roots right now, keep our families in our district, and really help to support Greenburgh Central School District in becoming one of the primary districts in our county.
I think you're muted, Antoinette.
Thank you for your questions and sharing your concerns. We'll definitely ensure that administration does receive them and that they will be addressed. So thank you so much. We appreciate you sharing.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
No problem. And let me say a quick apology. Whatever screen I'm on, I can't, the timer was not up, so I could not see the timer. So
I saw the timer and hit 0. I wanted to respect the time.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see it. It wasn't on my screen this time. All right, thank you. Tracy?
I also wanted to assure you that ECP parents will not be understated. I started out as an ECP parent and involved, and we hope that you stay as long as you can till 12th grade, and that staying involved and being active in the school community is the best thing to have your child succeed here. So thank you for coming, and please continue to stay involved, and I'm happy to see that you're on the PTA.
All right, Terry?
Yes, I just want to thank the previous speaker for her comments. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I'm sorry, it's Shamika Matherin. I should have changed it on the screen. I'm a twin, if you didn't figure that out. And I have twins, but.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now, do we have Katie ready?
Yeah, I did want to ask, and I don't know if someone will remember, David, I know you're the chair of the facilities committee. I thought that we did discuss moving the playground from the main building over to Lee F. Jackson at one point. And I see you nodding, David. So please, if you have any, if you could fill in anything to answer for the question, that'd be helpful for me.
Sure. I believe that I'm just repeating what Mike Falcone has said, which is basically that moving the playground equipment is not as easy as you think it is, and that won't work. But we can do something at Lee F. Jackson to put up other playground equipment instead. Now, we are looking at various options. We have a limited supply of funding and a lot of different things that need to be fixed. Just you know, in the long run, the best solution is probably to put an extension onto Lee F. Jackson and put everybody in one spot. At least I think that's what I've heard before. That can't be done in a short period of time, both because you know, you have to bond it, and it will also, you know, take time to build it if you pass the bond. In the short run, if you had a choice between being at Highview or having some of the kids at Highview, or in refurbishing and putting back the main ECP building, which would you choose?
That's a great question. And as as a new parent to the district, I have no idea. I don't know what Highview has to offer. I don't know what the main building had to offer. I've never set foot in either of them. And I guess that's part of what I'm putting out there as well. As the newest members of the school community, what information, we have access to, and what opportunities we have access to. So that's not even a question I can answer.
All right,
We need to provide you information. Thank you.
Thank you. We have, I believe, Dr. Reynolds, I'm sorry, and then we need to get to Katie.
I saw Trustee Williams' hand up first, so I want to be sure that he didn't have something to share before I started.
The only thing the only thing I have to share is I would just suggest that after a community member speaks, and you know, after an initial follow-up on the issue that they raised, that we move expeditiously to the next item, and some of these things that we're extending the conversation on could either be handled at other parts of the meeting or under the new business segment, but certainly if we would keep things moving forward, that would be helpful.
Dr. Reynolds, thank you. Could you please keep moving forward?
Sure. So in response to the concerns about the COVID cases, I just wanted to give a very brief education. So each case is taken at face value, and it's on a case-by-case basis, literally. So when we get a report of a potential exposure, we have to work in conjunction with the Department of Health. We perform a contact tracing protocol, which we look to see who's actually infected or possibly infected and what that spread could be. And the Department of Health kind of informs us as to what steps need to be taken. Unfortunately, we do have our ECP students split between two buildings, but we have to treat each building in isolation. We can't take into consideration which populations are there. So for instance, and I'll give you a very brief overview. The person who has COVID is considered patient 0. That person, of course, has to be removed from the environment. Anyone that person comes into contact with for more than 15 minutes at a time, or if there is a removal of the mask or the shield, those persons are now considered patient 1s. Patient 1s must then quarantine for at least 14 days. Anyone who's patient 2 would be if there was a child who's considered patient 1 and they have a parent who cares for them, or they have a sibling, those people don't necessarily need to quarantine according to the Department of Health. But based on how many patient 1s we have in a particular building, that's what determines whether we need to close a classroom, an area of the building, or the building altogether.
Okay. Thank you. I believe the next person is Katie McGee.
Yep, sure is. I'll let her in right now.
Okay. I don't see Katie.
Did she leave? She was there a minute ago. She's right here.
Oh, I see her now.
We can't hear you, Katie.
Can't hear me. I am unmuted.
All right, we can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. I just wanted to say before I go on with my remarks about the ECP playground. Did you mention that it's been budgeted for a new one? I mean, that's in the works, and Dr. Chase had brought plans to you last time. I just so that all the parents know. I don't know what the time frame was for that. So yes, the kids are currently without a playground, and that was the case last year when I was coming to these meetings, and ECP parents were disappointed that the kids did not have a playground at Leah Jackson. So here we are.
I think last year the playground, like it didn't come in, or they were waiting for something to that effect. I think so.
Well, that was about supplies, but initially no one realized that the Leah F. Jackson playground wasn't built for kids younger than 5. So then it became, what are you going to do? And
yeah.
Anyway, I wish there had been more to be done there sooner. Anyway, one more minute. Okay, so my question was, you guys discussed at the end of the work session, $31,000 for a budget transfer to pay for the superintendent search firm, and you hadn't decided which budget line to take it from. But I'm trying to figure out why it's 31,000. Like the contract was 8,500. So someone maybe could break that down for me, because I asked about advertising. It's still, I can't make it add up to 31,000. And are you talking about a lump sum, or why are you talking about that lump sum when the proposal outlines installments, including like the final quarter is due at the time of hire? So, and I commend your efforts to make sure you take from a budget line that will have the least impact from the kids, but doing so has slowed you down to the point where like they already started their work and you haven't paid them the first installment. So that's got to be against some of your policies, and not a good way to start out with them. And also I, wasn't surprised it's a lean budget year that you can't find it from another line, because we know that it's a lean budget year and there's some money that shouldn't be touched in case the governor cuts, more aid to you. Did my time run out?
I think so, yes. Yes. I had multiple things. Well, I would say this, fortunately, our search firm is being patient with us. Again, as you know, at our last meeting, we were presented with 3 options. I believe we tabled it because everybody is trying to figure out what's the best line to take it from. As far as the lump sum, I believe Ivy, when she usually explains it, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, it's still paid in increments, right, Ivy? If that's, I'm not sure if that's if that's the right word, but if it's something that has to be paid out, it still wouldn't be paid just because we approved the whole thing. We wouldn't send the whole thing. We would still go about paying it in increments. I guess that's the best way I can think of explaining it. Okay, she didn't say anything, so I must have gotten that right. And as far as the 31, I think it may be, I know for sure for advertisement, it was advertised for a higher amount than we actually are going to use, based on what they recommended for us to use as far as which type of advertisement, so that we're actually going to save a little bit on that too. And I believe the overall amount will also be saved on that as well. I just think it depends on the hours, the time, where candidates might come from, as far as, are they coming from another state, out of town? Are there any, those type of things that we have to take into consideration? If someone has to, from the team, maybe travel, I don't know if we'll ever have an in-person meeting, but if someone is traveling, that way we would take care of those costs as well. So again, it will not be over the 31. It most likely will be lower than that. So that's what my understanding of the things that comes into play when you think about that budget line. All right. Thank you, Katie. Terry.
Yes, Antoinette, I'd like to have a conversation about the payment to the consultant, to the search consultant, under the discussion when we get to the finances part of the meeting. I have a few questions.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. All right. Katie, I think I'm removing you altogether. You'll watch on the YouTube channel, I believe. All right. All right. I think that is it. Okay. All right. So now, board, and as far as section B in regards to, let's see, just for your review for our next meeting, we have policy amendments to be considered for board action at the December 15th meeting 2020 concerning meal charging, certification, professional development, leaves of absence, and DASA. So just make sure you guys take a look at that so we can be prepared for that next meeting. Copies of these policies will be available in the district clerk's office and in all school buildings upon our reopening, and will be available on our website. All comments concerning these policies should be submitted in writing to the Board of Education. Okay, all right. The next item up is the superintendent's report. After that, do we have, Dr. Reynolds, I'll ask you one more time, did you have anything at all to share, or you're good to go?
No, I have nothing to share through Dr. Chase this evening.
All right, thank you. And committee reports are next. Do we have any committees to report? I saw Ashley's hand, Tracy. David, do you have?
No.
Terry, did you have? I know you guys had a meeting as well sometime in the last couple of weeks.
Ashley, excuse me. She asked me. Ashley is the chairman of the, excuse me, Mr. Vice President.
Please.
I'm speaking.
Thank you.
Antoinette, Ashley is the president, chairman of that committee, so he will give the report.
All right, thank you. All right. All right. Ashley, you're up.
Thank you.
Oh, Tanya, you might have something, I'm not sure.
I don't have anything for today, no.
Okay, Terry, you're up, and then Tracy.
We just had ours yesterday.
I mean, not Terry, I'm sorry, Ashley.
Okay. Good evening. The GCSD Governance and Policy Committee met on October 27, 2020. The meeting commenced at 6:36 p.m. Committee members present were Trustee Terry Williams, Vice President Tracy Mares, Trustee Ashley Pineda, Superintendent Dr. Chase. This meeting was held virtually through Zoom, recorded and transcribed, as well as being live broadcast via the GCSD YouTube channel. The first thing we did was select our committee chair. I have been elected the chair. The second thing we did was select the recording secretary, that's Tracy Mares. In terms of committee charges, we are going to circulate the governance and policy charges from last year. It's going to be a little bit different because last year it was a sole governance committee. And this year we actually consolidated the governance and policy committees into one committee. So we are going to circulate the charges from last year for the governance committee. And the next time we meet, we will be discussing and expanding upon the ideas for the committee charges. We reviewed and adopted our last governance committee meeting minutes. I will go ahead and give a brief overview of those. During that review, I had erroneously stated that our last meeting was actually in December. It actually was on February 3rd, 2020. During that meeting, the meeting had commenced at 8:36 p.m. Trustee Terry Williams, Vice President Tracy Mares, Dr. Chase, and myself were present. We had guests present of Carol Melnick and Katie McGee, a community member. We had reviewed the previous 3 meeting minutes and adopted them. We had talked about our procedure manual. We talked about governance policies review, specifically breaking up 7 policies amongst the committee members and figuring out which ones related specifically to governance of the board needed to be modified. We also had talked about public comments, some comparisons of options we could follow, and then we had a conversation on new business. That meeting adjourned at 9:31 p.m. That said, after we reviewed the last committee meeting minutes, which again was in February, and then obviously we went into COVID and we stopped having committee meetings across the board. We then at that point decided that we needed to talk about the dates and times for future committees. And at that point, I went ahead and decided that as part of the committee, I would circulate some dates. Those have been circulated, and we're just waiting final confirmation from everyone that those dates work, and then we will send those out and put them on the website so that the community can attend if they choose. We also set a new date for the board member handbook draft review. That was circulated via email to the committee members again, and we have set our January meeting as the deadline for our review and comments. During any other business, two things came up. The first thing was Trustee Mayers wanted to talk about a recommendation for either a policy or best practices idea for virtual learning. We actually did talk about that during our last board meeting, so we don't have to expand upon that. And then the second piece, which we did not get a chance to talk about because my meeting minutes weren't finished, is we had talked about the governance committee potentially going back to our previous model that was used in the past, where the governance committee would work on board retreat topics, ideas, and suggestions, just to further along the mission of the board and not, necessarily bog down the entire board with coming up with those ideas and suggestions. And then the governance committee could then recommend that to the board if the board was willing to have that. So I did want to raise that. I will be raising it in more detail during the new business section of our meeting, but that was the last thing we talked about at that time. The meeting adjourned at 7:31 p.m. And then the last thing I want to mention is I wanted to give our community a heads up that we have tentatively scheduled the Safety and Technology Committee dates. I'm just waiting final confirmation from committee members on availability on those dates. Once those confirmations are in, I will be circulating that, and we will be posting that as well so we can kick off the Safety and Technology Committee for this year. That's it for my minutes.
Thank you, Ashley. Tracy.
I see David's hand raised. I don't know if you had a question about our governance committee.
I'll wait till you guys are done.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm going to give you the report on the CEC committee. It's based off of the unapproved minutes. So our meeting started at 7:05 p.m. and we had lots of people in the meeting. I'll read the list. We had myself, who was chairing the committee this year. We had Antoinette Darden-Cintron, David Warner, Kenneth Bailey, Liz Anastasi, Mary Spells, Kiana Washington, Lori D'Amico, Steve Lewis, Laser Alert, Chris Vallon, Sheepa Rossi, Samantha Ives, Amy Wang, Jocelyn Evans, Dana Curtin, Kelly Ross Johnson, Sarah Lazari, Deborah Dionis, Veerly Woodward, and Thomas Odenthal. The first thing that we did in the meeting was introduce ourselves to one another, and we decided whether or not we wanted to have this committee meeting be a committee of just the board, since the district committee, or if we wanted to also include committee members as active members of the committee that vote, that make motions, make suggestions for recommendations to the board, which is how the committee has run in the past. And everyone pretty much unanimously decided that we wanted the community members to have input and make motions and vote, etc. We asked for volunteers to be on the committee to actually be members of the committee, and these were the volunteers: Laser Alert, Liz Anastasi, Jocelyn Evans, Amy Wang, Samantha Ives, Dana Curtin, Sarah Lazari, Kelly Ross Johnson, Mary Spells, Chris Vallon, Kiana Washington, Patricia Weems, and Veerly Woodward. You'll see later on in our agenda tonight, we ask that you approve those members of the committee. Also, I do need to note that our committee is CEC, which is Community Engagement, and Communications Committee. So it's a blending of the committees this year. We talked about that back in September, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. The second thing we did was we chose committee meeting dates for the rest of the year. So our first committee meeting was back on November 10th. Our next committee meeting is going to be January 11th. Mark your calendars. The next committee meeting after that is going to be in March 1st. Then we are going to have a special community engagement and communications meeting in April, specifically for the budget, so that we can discuss the budget as a community. That's on April 26th. Then we're going to have our final CEC meeting on May 24th. All of our meetings we have agreed are going to be from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. So again, the dates are January 11th, March 1st, budget one on April 26th, and May 24th from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Next, we talked about the proposed mission and charges. That has gone out to the superintendent. She wasn't able to make our meeting, but this is a district committee, so we want to make sure that she is in agreement with our missions and charges. And also, she may have any additions or changes. We reviewed the notes from our previous meeting, which was back in February, before COVID, and we approved those. We discussed district and building communications, which is now underneath our committee charges, and there's several things that we brought up. I will mention them quickly. We should query existing community members on the CEC distribution list. We should incorporate contracts from the town civic association list. We should share contact resources with the Greenburgh Public Libraries. We should obtain quotes from the district clerk on sending out postcards requesting sign up on our online list, either the entire district newsletter distribution list or to the frequent voters list. We should make existing email database sign up under communication email signups, and we should automate distribution list maintenance on our district website. And lastly, the distribution list should be monthly to forward information submitted by all district and Board of Ed committees. Just some suggestions, just conversation. We haven't made any official recommendations. And then lastly, we discussed community concerns. There were several requests and several suggestions. One of the first requests was that we post the district calendar, the hard copy flip calendar online. Luckily, we had our technology person in the meeting and he was able to do that immediately. So that was pretty easy. We also had a suggestion that we send out an email recruiting community members for all Board of Ed committee meetings. There was a suggestion that we cease in-person instruction from the end of December through to Martin Luther King Day. One of the community members thought maybe for safety. And then there were some questions about, and similar discussions about switching to full remote instruction during the Thanksgiving holiday. There was a suggestion that we distribute safety tips to reduce the spread of COVID-19. There was a question about whether non-instructional personnel were reassigned to other schools during when schools shut down for quarantine. There was a request that PLC and other district staff be held remotely, those meetings, instead of in person. There was a request for an update on Legionnaires test results, which one the public asked about tonight. There were questions about whether all temperature kiosks at our schools are still functioning. There were questions about a large number of touch-free hand sanitizers not working. There was questions about whether or not our district is in need of improvement. There were questions about whether there's a difference between the current daily sanitizing procedure and the end of the week sanitizing procedures in school. And lastly, there was questions about procedures for maintaining meeting minutes and the responsibility for the CEC notes. We decided to rotate the responsibility every meeting. This meeting, thankfully, Trustee Werner did the minutes, thank you. We will hopefully approve these in our January meeting. And then lastly, our meeting adjourned at 8:42 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Terry, is your hand up currently?
It is. Couple of questions. First question, Tracy. You were listing the a bunch of suggestions, and there was the last suggestion before the community concerns. What was that one again?
Sorry, I was reading them really fast. So the last suggestion under the building communications was that a distribution list should be used monthly to forward information submitted by all district and Board of Ed committees. So
okay. That's it. I just wanted to write that down because you were going fast. Thank you. I have a question for Carol and then a second question for, I guess, Tracy. Carol, so what is the board's role with regard to approving the committee charges? I know we have to, I know the superintendent is involved, but does the board approve the charges as well? What is our role with that?
So you have a very specific policy, which I don't have in front of me. And I would defer to Ivy, who has her hand up, because it specifically says exactly what the board's role is there, and I don't want to misspeak.
Sure.
Ivy?
For district committees, the superintendent recommends the charges subject to Board of Education approval.
So the board has to approve it once. Okay, all right, thank you.
For the district-wide committees, not the board committees.
Right. And this is a district-wide committee, right?
Yeah.
Tracy, when can we, is there, I'm sorry if you said this, if you could repeat it, would be good. What's the time frame for getting the charge for this?
So Mr. Williams, what I said was that we discussed our missions and charges and presented it to the superintendent for any changes or updates that she may have. So you'll have to wait for the superintendent to get it back to us, and then it'll be presented to you for vote.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. All right. I think it was just Tracy and Terry. David, I see your hand up. I'm sorry.
Okay, so now this would be the point at which I would announce that the next meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee is next Tuesday, the 24th at 5 p.m. Unless, of course, there's about to be a special board meeting over the top of that. Is there something I should know?
Yes, remember, David, at the last special meeting we had, we said that we would most likely have a special meeting on the following Tuesday, and you said, oh, so I may need to move my meeting, and we said yes.
I originally had my meeting on the 18th, and then some superintendent search stuff came and came in over the top of that after I made my initial move. So this is now the second move. What time will the special meeting be held? Can it be 7 or 7:30 so that I can continue with my meeting at 5?
Isn't the 24th Monday?
24th, Tuesday the 24th.
Oh, it's Tuesday. Sorry, I thought it was a Monday.
Wait, Tuesday the when is your meeting, David?
My meeting is currently scheduled for Tuesday the 24th of November.
I don't know. Ivy, I know they're getting, I believe we have been meeting for special meetings like for the last several times, like at 6 o'clock, so that we can try to get out. Ivy, I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, they are confirming 6 o'clock.
Yes, they have to get back to me.
So, David, I would say we need to hold off a little bit because we need to confirm with them that date, that time. I guess we could, if we could think about moving it back to possibly 6:30. But the whole point is just for us to be able as a board, because we have a lot of meetings, to get in and get out and not let it, be really late, especially on a day that we don't usually, have a meeting already scheduled. So if we move it to 6:30, would you be able to possibly get in and get out of your meeting before then?
I can try.
Okay. I'll update you, David, on what the firm says.
Thank you.
Or Ivy. Okay. All right. Tracy, I thought I saw your hand up.
I was trying to confirm whether or not we were definitely having a special meeting, but it sounds like we are.
Yes. Okay. All right. Tanya, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to say something? Okay. All right. So, all right. So our next section that we are up to now, we are going through the approvals. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the instructional personnel items presented to the board for this evening? And this is for section C, instructional personnel items.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Discussion,
Aye.
please.
Okay, hold, Terry.
Yes. Actually, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye. I'm sorry, that was for, I couldn't unmute.
The first one. Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none. Motion carries. Okay, we're up to section D, non-instructional personnel items. Is there a motion to approve the non-instructional personnel items presented to the board for approval this evening?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Okay, we are up to section E, board action items. Is there a motion to approve the board action items presented to the board for approval this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, please.
Terry, discussion. I'm sorry,
So quick.
Terry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, refresh my memory, please. Finance and Facilities Committee. It's a district committee or a board committee?
That's
The district committee.
No, finance and facilities?
Yes.
Finance and facilities. It's a district committee.
It's a district committee.
Yes.
Okay. Well, two people said it's a district committee. Antoinette thought it was a board committee.
I have it in my head how, you know, that sheet Ivy usually gives us and it's like separated for some reason in my brain.
Sure.
I haven't seen in a while.
So let me ask Ivy. I can't see that, David, very well. So plus I trust Ivy on this one. Is it a district or board committee, Ivy?
Right now, it's listed as a district committee.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But if you don't have non-board members participating, becoming members, then it becomes a board committee.
Right. Okay. That was just my only question.
Okay, so that was, I believe we're on D. We did get a second, am I correct? Yep, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Hold on for 1 second, please. All right. Section E, board action items. Is there a motion to approve the board action items presented to the board for approval this evening?
So moved.
Excuse me. I think we did E already.
You did.
Yeah.
Raising your hand.
Sorry. Go ahead, Ivy.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that you just did board action items. You're up to finance now.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Section F, finance items. Is there a motion to approve the finance items presented to the board for approval this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion. Okay, I heard Tanya first. I think I heard Terry second.
Yes, you did.
After that, okay. So Tanya?
I have a question for Amy. I saw that one of the October budget transfers, number 2382, was 16,000 for treasurer training, and I was just wondering what precisely that was.
I think what that was the amount that was still left for Alicia's contract, I believe, but I will check that out. I'm pretty sure that's what that was.
So it was basically to pay her for her consulting fee.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then Amy, I also had a bit of a general question for you, which might segue into a later discussion. And that's regarding when we do these budget transfers, are there certain codes that are not allowable? The transfers are not allowable, or are basically budget transfers allowable between all codes?
So budget transfers are allowable between all codes, but generally what we try to do is make sure that they are like codes. So the same function, if it's a contract, if it's salaries, equipment, we definitely try to make sure that the transfers are done that way. Very rarely would it be a transfer that's a different code.
Okay, but legally you could, I'm just saying this off the top of my head, you could transfer from equipment to salaries if you had to.
If you had to.
Got it. Okay.
That's not best practice.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Harry, you're next.
Thank you. So I think this question is for Amy. But first let me ask this, Antoinette. My question is about the requirements before engaging a vendor for a service. And specifically, it's about the search consultant. If you want me to wait until, because I know under the closing items, we're discussing the budget code transfer for the superintendent search. So my question is related to that. You want me to wait for that, or should I ask this question now? In fact, let me just ask the question and you can tell me if you want me to wait. How about that? So my question is this. We have not transferred money for the superintendent search. Have we paid the search consultant anything?
I believe that was said earlier that we had not paid anything at this point. Like
okay.
we were supposed to make a decision on Mary shared 3 different options. We discussed the last meeting. We were supposed to pick one of those. We tabled it. So, right. Yeah.
So I guess my question is this: are we in violation of our policy if we have engaged somebody without paying them first? And I guess the overarching question is, has a purchase order been issued, and is it even required before they start?
I don't believe a purchase order was issued.
Well, let me. I think that question is for Amy. If you feel qualified to answer that, if you feel that's in your wheelhouse, and then you're qualified. I don't know. I didn't know if it was a treasurer question or assistant superintendent for business question. So if you could.
Well, you asked me the first question, so I was trying.
No, I get it. I get it.
Okay, so Amy, was a purchase order made for that?
I have not seen a purchase order.
Okay, thank you. Ivy, I see your hand up.
Purchase order was not issued because you need the funds first.
Yep.
So
Okay.
there have to be funds in the code in order to prepare the requisition that would get converted into a purchase order.
Okay. So is there any policy? Are we in violation of our policy if somebody begins to work for us before the purchase order is issued, before there's money in the code? I'm just curious about, if we're following our policy here, since we still haven't allocated money to pay for this.
Madam President, can I ask a question, please?
Sure,
Madam
Ms.
President, I
Carey,
have a
but,
question on
I
the
would
floor.
say, Ms. Carey, hold on for a second. I would say, I'm not sure. Terry, David, you guys have been here longer than me. Maybe you guys might know, but I'm personally not sure. Carol, could you take a look into it as
Well,
well?
I certainly
Maybe
don't
not
know
now at
because
this
I'm
point,
asking a
Carol,
question because
but
I
yeah.
don't know. Because this is uncharted territory for me. Because we've always, you know, done the budget code transfers ahead of, or certainly in time for some work to begin. So again, I guess I'm just concerned that that we haven't issued a purchase order yet, and the work has already begun. And I'm wondering, and maybe Carol, maybe this is a legal question, you know, and again, I'm keeping in mind you don't have our policies at your ready. I certainly don't know the policy book, you know, like the back of my hand, but just in general, is there some kind of risk we're facing here?
Well, at this time, I think the search firm understands that the district is going to pay them, that you have signed an agreement, you've passed a resolution, and it's just a matter of ironing out these last issues, which you should do as soon as you're able to do them. So they're not pulling back. They have not in any way complained to us. I don't think you have an immediate risk, but you should obviously make the transfer so that you can move forward.
So is this any kind of violation that would, in the course of an audit, raise a question or a concern?
You haven't paid anything yet, so you haven't violated anything.
No, I understand we haven't paid anything yet, but again, we haven't followed. No, we can't move on because I have a question.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I know we can always move on when you want to move on. Madam President, I'm speaking, Ms. Vice President. I'm speaking, Ms. Vice President.
Let's move on.
I'm speaking, Ms. Vice
You like to
President.
move things
I'm
along.
speaking, Ms. Vice President. I'm speaking, Ms. Vice President.
Everybody, please.
I'm speaking, Ms. Carey. I'm speaking, Ms. Carey. I'm speaking.
Everyone.
I'm speaking, Ms. Carey.
Everyone.
I'm speaking, Ms. Carey. I'm speaking, Ms. Carey. I'm speaking, Ms. Carey.
All you're doing
I'm
is
speaking, Ms. Carey. I'm speaking,
If
Ms. Carey.
everyone could stop for a second, if everyone could just stop talking, please. Thank you.
He cannot rule
I'm
the
speaking,
meeting.
Ms. Carey. I'm speaking, Ms. Carey.
Can you, everyone, please just stop? If you both,
Ms. Carey, go back and watch the videos that you watch while the meeting's going on. Go back and watch the videos, Ms. Carey. This is business we're taking care of, Ms. Carey. Go back and watch videos. Go back and watch videos, Ms. Carey. So again, Carol, my question is, I'm concerned about the, go back and watch videos, Ms. Carey. We're taking care of children's business here.
Insult people. Can we focus on the motion?
Please, can I just ask this question?
If everyone could stop long enough so that the silence can maybe wake us up to get right back on track, please. Okay. Carol, I believe you were going to answer something, a question that was posed by Terry. If you could just answer it, and then we're going to move forward because I believe we should be at section G, business items.
So I'll just repeat what I had said. Maybe some of it was lost. Right now, you have approved an agreement with a search firm. The expectation is that the district will follow its policy and make the payments as set forth in the terms of the agreement. To the extent that that has not happened yet, you are in the process of making it happen. So my best advice is that you move forward with the budget transfer so that payment can be made. At this point, you're not in violation of anything. No one has charged you with violating anything. It's just a matter of moving forward.
Okay, Madam President, there's a motion on the floor, and I believe we were doing discussion. So I believe we were at the point to take the vote. I don't know, Ivy, maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
All right. Ivy, we're at G, right? I just want to make sure.
I don't think we took the vote on.
You have a motion and second on the finance items.
On the
You
finance,
have to
okay,
vote
so we
on
have
that before moving forward.
All right, motion and second. We have that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Section G, business items. Is there a motion to approve the business items presented to the board for approval this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Are there any extensions? All right, the motion carries. All right, so now we have H, section H, personnel services items.
Madam President, if you recall at the last meeting, I asked that we separate
It is
items.
separated already. It's on the agenda, so I'm ready to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. All right. All right. If someone, I'm sorry, if someone could please just mute, there's some sound coming through. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the pupil personnel services items presented to the board for approval this evening, with the exception of item H5, which shall be voted separately?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Is there a motion to approve pupil personnel services item H5 presented to the board this evening? Is there,
So moved.
yeah, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right, Ivy, please take a roll call of the vote.
The motion currently before the floor, made by Mr. Warner, seconded by Mr. Pineda. Mr. Warner,
Yes.
Ms. Mayers,
I have to abstain.
Dr. Drogic,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Pineda,
Yes.
Ms. Carey,
Yes.
Ms. Darden Cintron.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay. All right. Let's see. All right, we are now at closing items. We have budget code transfers for the superintendent search. All right, so the last time we talked about this, again, Mary O'Neill left us with 3 budget areas that we could pull from, and we tabled it. We are coming back to the item so that we can do what we need to do, what we've been talking about earlier in this meeting. So I do have some information to share. So we did reach out to the athletic director to provide like some follow-up response in regards to some of the questions that came out from our meeting a couple of weeks ago. And pretty much he said, as far as the transportation budget line, we will have less trips in the next few months, but not certain how many, due to the uncertainty of what is occurring due to COVID. The following trip expenses will not be used for this year is $950 for indoor track practice, $1,500. There usually is an annual New York Jets trip, a New York Jets trip. There's usually an $500. Did I say how much that was? $1,500 for the New York Jets trip. $500 for the AD conference. There are two sports that we usually have in the fall that will most likely happen in March. Football, which is one of our biggest expenses, didn't occur in the fall, but their season is planned at this point for March. And they usually take 2 or 3 buses for away games, but this season that could be doubled. Let me see what else. The total expenditure for the athletic trip line was $123,000 for the 2018-19 school year and $110,000 for the 2019 school year. Okay. So with that said, we still at this point have information in regards to, and it's in your board packet. Ivy put it Ivy does have it in board docs. That pretty much tells us again those same 3 items that we already had. So we need to again make a decision on where we would pull this funding from.
I see Mr. Pineda's hand is raised.
Ashley, go ahead. Thank you, Tracy.
Based on Mr. McCoy's feedback, and I understand that he said that the sports that usually happen in fall were going to happen in March. If I remember the context of that, those sports were going to happen in March, but they were going to be a condensed or compressed window, because obviously you're not going to play football into the summer, right?
Yeah.
So that said, my gut here is between our 3 options. I think I'm more firmly cemented now on I would vote for option 2, athletic trips. I think that the likelihood, given everything that's going on in the world out there today, things are getting worse, they're not getting better in terms of COVID. I suspect that if we have any area where we will have the ability to take some money, it will be option 2 without having a major impact on the kids. So that's my vote.
Thank you. Tracy.
I'll concur with that, option 2.
Tanya.
Option 2.
David.
I'm going to abstain from this because I think I'm opposed to the whole process. So.
Abstain. David. Terry.
I am opposed to any of the options that takes money away from the instruction or extracurricular activities of our children. These are budget code transfers, obviously, for areas that may be underutilized, but this money could be used elsewhere. We had a parent come and speak to us today about the playground situation at our schools. These are monies that the community has entrusted us with for furthering our children's education and their experience here. And this and using the monies in this way takes away from that. So that's my comment on that. The second thing I just want to ask you, Antoinette, is
I see that you're. Did you say you were abstaining? I didn't. I did. Just want to make sure
I'm actually going to vote no, but that therein lies my second question, because you're polling us in public. I mean, are we going to have a resolution on this?
Well, my thought was that yes, we are. My thought was we'd have a conversation about it, so people are giving that.
Okay.
And just.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. No, I appreciate that. I just want clarification. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that, and I'll just wait for the resolution. Thank you.
Okay. I feel like I missed Miss Carey.
She can't see us.
Ms. Carey?
You're muted.
Are we voting on this or what? What is this? A consensus?
Right now, just want to get a sense of where people are so that we can take a vote. So we're discussing it. There will be a resolution created for this.
Okay, so we're voting on which option?
Yes.
We would like to put in the resolution?
Yes.
And option 2 seems to be the majority vote. I'll go with that.
Okay. I too, Ivy, am with option 2 as well. All right, so all right.
Excuse me, Antoinette.
Yes.
Question. When you call for a vote, can you have a roll call vote, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So we have section 2, option 2. All right, so be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the following budget code transfers to fund the superintendent search process for the 2020-2021 school year from, okay, A 5540.438-00-000 to A 1010-400-01-000, an amount of 31,000, contract transportation athletic trips BOE to contractual. Ivy, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, I heard a second. Ivy, can you please do a roll call vote?
On the motion made by Ms. Carey, seconded by Ms. Mears. Ms. Carey?
Yes.
Dr. Drogic?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Mr. Pineda?
Yes.
Ms. Mears?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Abstain.
Ms. Darden Cintron?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay. Thank you. We are now up to Personnel Committee membership. I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. All right. So yes, we are up to 2 Personnel Committee membership. All right, so this is the last time, I believe, when we talked about the Personnel Committee. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. There were 4 members of the board that were interested in being on this committee. There was Ms. Carey, Tracy, Terry, and myself. Does anyone want to, does everyone, these same members still want to be on this committee?
Yes.
Ms. Carey, I didn't catch you. I didn't hear you. And Terry, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Yes.
Ms. Carey. You both said yes.
Muted, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So I guess my question is, what's the best way? Because we have 4 people who want to be on this committee.
Well, I think the people who said it first are the ones who should.
Terry, is that the way that has been done in the past?
Well, listen,
This is tough.
you know, we've very rarely had a situation where the last time we had it was
when the governance came
the
back,
governance
right?
committee, and we bent over backwards and we got a legal opinion from our lawyer at the time who said you can't have 4 people. You know, the thinking was, well, it's advisory anyway, but as the law is written, you can't have a quorum. So what does the policy say? What does the policy say?
All right, let's see. Tracy, I do see your hands up. Let me see. Tracy, I saw your hand up, or you changed your mind?
Nope, I was going to say to check the policy.
Oh, okay. So I'm looking. Let's see.
Ivy has her hand up.
Oh, Ivy.
The policy says that the board will determine the committees. It doesn't say how you're going to go about approving the committee members.
Ivy, I thought you were going to say something else. Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Carol, any suggestions?
If you are unable to agree amongst yourselves, you can vote on it.
Great idea. So I think we should vote.
So I have a question before we do that. And
Tanya?
Yeah, my question is whether you, Antoinette, as the president of the board, whether you have to be on that committee.
You should, since it's a contract.
Ex officio on every committee, if she wants to be.
Excuse me, I have my hand up.
All right. I'm not sure about that. I know it says ex officio somewhere, but I'm not sure if that's like I have to. Okay.
Believe me, I've been on many committees. Ex officio chair people can be on a committee ex officio if they so desire.
Yes. Thank you. Perry.
Yes, the information that Ms. Mayers presented, I think, is erroneous because she said the president should be on there because it's contract. Well, the president doesn't approve contracts. The board approves that. And again, the committee is advisory, and it would be giving a recommendation to the broader committee. So the president in his or her role doesn't have any more power than anybody else. That's not to say, Antoinette, that you shouldn't be on it, but I just want to make sure that the information is correct, that people make a decision based on the facts rather than innuendo. Thank you.
And I really don't care what you think is erroneous because I have an opinion just like you. And it's my opinion, Antoinette, that you should be on this board committee as you want it to be. As the president, you were unanimously elected, even though other people have other opinions now. You are unanimously elected as the board president, and I support you being on the committee, and I think we should go around and vote. That's my opinion.
Okay, so we're gonna go around and vote. Ivy, tell me what you think about the
what are we
three.
voting on?
We're gonna vote on the 3 people that we believe should be on the committee. So Ivy, tell me, what do you think? If each board member just named their 3 people?
Are we going to be We're not going to be voting for anything on this committee, are we?
Miss Carey, we're voting on the members.
No, you don't. I'm not talking about that. As a committee, we will not be voting on anything. We will only be bringing back recommendations. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So what is the problem about you being on or off the board?
No, there's no problem as far as that. Right now, you have 4 members that want to be a part of the committee. So we need to make it 3 members. So what we were going to go do, which Carol suggested, is to vote. So each person is going to vote on the 3 people for the committee. So Terry, you put that. So that's what that is. Miss Carey, you understand that part?
I understand it, but I don't understand why there's got to be a vote on. I said from the very beginning I wanted to be on the committee. I was one of the first who said that. So why do I have to have somebody vote me on?
because Ms. Carey, we have 4 people. 4 people cannot be on this committee. So we need to have 3 people. So we're voting on what 3 people we want to be on this committee. That's what we're doing.
Look, you can be on any committee ex officio. I don't know why the lawyer is not looking that up and telling you so. So if 3 of us are on there, you can still be on the ex officio. I don't understand what this is all about.
Okay,
I really don't.
Can I?
Ridiculous.
Could you?
Do you want me to
Ms.
respond?
Carey, could you hold on? Yes, Harold, please.
So according to the open meetings law advisory opinions, if you have if you have a quorum of the board present, regardless of what you may title that board member, if you have 4, that's considered a quorum, and that triggers the open meetings law requirement, and it becomes a board meeting, not a committee meeting. So in order to not run afoul of that, if this is simply an advisory committee and the open meetings law would not apply to this personnel committee meeting, there needs to be 3. So if one person can agree that they will not be on it, you can go forward with the other 3. Otherwise, you need to work it out in one manner or another who the 3 are going to be.
Okay, thank you, Carol. All right, so we're gonna.
Antoinette, I had a question.
Carrie.
Yes. So, Carol, could you just clarify how the ex officio works? I mean, I understand that the president of the board is an ex officio member of any board committee, but does that mean that he or she attends any meeting? I just want to know how that works, because we've never really invoked it. We all know that it exists, but it's never been invoked in any way.
So if you had 2 members who wanted to participate in this committee, and Antoinette participated in an ex officio manner, you would have 3 members participating. You would have less than a quorum.
Right.
But the open meetings law doesn't distinguish between somebody participating as an ex officio member or as a president or as a general board member. You are all members of the Board of Education.
Right.
For counting purposes.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Tracy has a hand up.
Yeah, so my vote is that myself, I want to return to the committee. I know Cora has kept, it was her that actually wanted the committee itself back in September when we mistakenly abolished the committee, and Antoinette. That's my vote. Thanks.
Antoinette, I hate to interrupt. I'm going to rescind my nomination for the committee, so you 3 can be on the committee.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Terry, for that. All right, we are moving forward.
Are we
All right.
at the end of the?
Is there any new business?
Sure.
David. Terry,
So
next.
around about October, they came up with these sort of micro zones. If there's a concentration of COVID-19, and if you're in a red zone or an orange zone, then you shut down the school. But if you're in a yellow zone, then you have to have 20% of your either your student body and your parent, not parents, but staff tested on a weekly basis. And the tests are supposed to be free, and there's supposed to be some sort of training. I think there's a guidance document on that. Question in my mind is, if that becomes a reality for us, it hasn't yet, but if it does somewhere down the line become a reality for us, do we need permission slips for the kids in advance to know whether we have permission to give them the test?
I don't know. Carol, do you know that if we do have
So-
permission to do so?
So we had sent a memo on this today.
Oh, I sent that then.
Dr. Reynolds is shaking his head. And I don't recall anything on a permission slip. That may be something you wish to do beyond, but
Yeah, I didn't see
I would
that, so
just
then my
ask
question was,
Dr.
do we
Reynolds
need it?
wants to weigh in.
I forwarded that to the board, I believe, earlier today. Dr. Reynolds?
Yes, thank you. So Carol, you're absolutely right. I did reach out to Larry also for some guidance as it relates to what our process would have to be. I do know that there were some issues in New York City with their testing of students and with the misrepresentation of information that was on a permission slip or the loss of a permission slip. So that's why I wanted to be sure that that wasn't a part of the directive, number one. Number two, and if it was, can we put that into play for ourselves as a district?
Mm-hmm. So we can look into that further for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Dave, that's it?
That's it.
All right. Terry?
Yes, I had a question about the correspondences going out to the public regarding the superintendent search. Since who was sending out the correspondences on that, or who was responsible for that?
I sent them out.
You sent them out because I got a couple of calls that the information on I think for having people participate in the conversations with the search firm did not go out in Spanish. I heard it only went out in English. I didn't see it, but this is what I heard. I got calls about that. Is that the case?
I only sent it in I only sent it in English.
Okay. Our policy.
And it went to, excuse me, Mr.
Sure.
Miller, and it went to the stakeholders. That's what I sent
Went
out.
to-
Not
okay.
what's posted on the website. I'm talking about what went to the different stakeholders.
Right. By stakeholders, you mean?
The different service groups, civic associations, clergy.
Okay, so on the website, is it because again, I don't always go to the website, but is it in English and Spanish?
The surveys, the community link to the surveys are in different languages,
Okay.
but the posting of the meeting is in English.
Okay. Could we just make sure that we have it in both languages?
All right. Thank you, Terry. Are there any other closing new business? Ashley, I see your hand. And Miss Carey, I think you're next. Am I correct, Miss Carey? Did you say something?
Yes, please.
All right, Ashley.
Okay, just going back to what we had talked about earlier. So just as a reminder, the goal of any of our committees is to provide recommendations to the board in an effort to move our board meetings along in an expeditious manner. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, the governance committee would like the Board of Education's input as to whether the governance committee should begin formulating board retreat topics, ideas, and or suggestions for a future board retreat. If the board approves the governance committee taking this on, we will add this to our agenda items and present the board with a recommendation as to what the retreat could focus on. So I would like the board's input on that.
As
Sounds
far
like
as
a good idea to me.
for the future, not for now, right now, this moment, for the future, for the next,
Either
right?
way is fine. Either way is
Okay.
fine.
All right, thank you.
I think Cora said it was fine by her, and I see David's hand up.
David, you want to respond to what Ashley was saying?
I concur. I think that the governance committee, it would be a good thing for them to come up with topics for a retreat. I do want you to keep in mind that we need to do something about our 5-year plan. Okay, so some portion of that needs to be worked into what we do over the course of the year in terms of retreats.
All right. Ms. Carey?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I think Carol is gonna have to answer these, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait.
And I think Dr. Reynolds will have to answer at least one.
Hold on, Cora. Hold on, Cora. Are you just asking about Ashley's question, or Cora's gonna go into her topics?
No, I asked Ashley, did he need to hear something now or later? He said either. And
Okay.
so some people did say something now, others did not say anything
Okay.
now.
Thank you for clarifying.
No problem. All right, Ms. Carey, continue.
Okay. I was wondering, Dr. Reynolds, if people who are specials in the different schools, they go from school to school, like a psychologist, a reading specialist, whatever.
Yeah.
If there is a situation in that school that would warrant the school to close and the staff go into, the 14-day
Quarantine?
Are these people, if they've been affiliated with the students or the staff of that particular school, should they also be quarantined?
Well, thank you for that question, Trustee. So at this point, anybody who's considered, like I explained earlier, patient 0 is a person who's infected. Anyone who is in contact with that person is considered patient 1. And again, there's a list of things that would have to be in place for that person to be considered patient 1. Again, a person who's exposed to a patient 0 for an inordinate amount of time, there was no PPE or protective gear worn, things of that nature. So all patient 0s and all patient 1s are required to quarantine for 14 days. If we have a number of patient 1s, and this is going for all of our schools, which will require, and for instance, we'll use the high school as an example, where there are departmentalization scenarios, right, where students go from class to class, or an adult may teach multiple students, and now we might have students and faculty members who have been in a room together and potentially affected, which could be an entire department. We do not have enough substitutes to put into place if we have to close an entire department. That would be the reason for putting the entire building into remote for 14 days. But only those people who are patient 0s and patient 1s need to quarantine. Everybody else is just being put out of their building per se because the building is closed. So if you have an itinerant staff, such as a psychologist or an art teacher who's shared, and they are not in contact with that with the patient 0 or patient 1, then they do not need to quarantine. And if they are split between buildings, they can continue to perform their services in another building. That is the purpose for the contact tracing. All of the persons who are potentially infectious are informed both by the district as well as by the Department of Health, and they are told they must quarantine for 14 days. Everybody else is, I would hate to say it, I'm going to use this term, a casualty of the closing of the building, so they do not have to quarantine.
Okay, so those people can go from being transferred to another school.
That's correct.
Okay, because I had gotten a couple of calls in reference to that, and I just wanted to clarify it. So if I am working at Lee F. Jackson, and there's an outbreak at Lee F. Jackson School, and I'm considered a number 2 person, even though I have been in that school with the situation of a COVID outbreak, whether it be 1 or 2 kids or staff members, then if I'm classified as number 2, then you can tell me, Cora Carey, I would like you to go over to Highview to work over there. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you, correct. But I also want to be very careful that we don't use the word outbreak. We have not had a case of an outbreak. It's always been one person who's been infected in each of the cases. So we don't want to alarm anyone. So yes, if you are in that building and you are considered patient 2, you can be reassigned to a different building.
Okay, now, how is that explained to the parents? Because I, as a parent, I would be concerned that somebody has been in a school that has had a person who has been diagnosed with COVID, and now you're sending someone over to a school where my child is. Do you send out letters to the parents explaining to them what's going on?
So we do have multiple forms of communication that go out. We also inform all of our families that in the event that you are suspected to have been exposed and do need to quarantine, you will be contacted on 2 levels, once by the district and once by the Department of Health. And we also state in our communication that if you're not contacted, you do not have to worry about being exposed, but the building may continue to be closed because of X, Y, or Z.
Okay, now just this one more question. It's in the same vein, but I'm just wondering, like, for instance, Z.F. Jackson was quarantined. Highview, I understand, had a child that was evidently diagnosed with the COVID, but that school was not closed. The whole school did not go into quarantine. Can you explain to me why?
So we have to be very careful. We're not supposed to give away any identifiers for anyone who is potentially exposed or has been exposed.
Well, I have no names or anything. I'm just asking a question about a situation. If you could help me out, I'd appreciate it.
I'm going to try my best. So in the 2 examples that you just gave, at the Highview, in the Highview case, the reason why we were able to just close a classroom as opposed to the entire building is because through the contact tracing, we were able to determine exactly whom came into contact with the infected person. And that person, based on the time that they were exposed to the other people and form of travel, where they went through the building or whatever the contact was, and the time of day, we were able to narrow it down to 1 classroom that could potentially have an infection, which is why we were able to close a classroom. That's why I stated earlier that each case is taken on a case-by-case basis. The best result is if we can pinpoint directly where that person traveled and with whom they came into contact, we would just have to close 1 classroom or a space of a building. When we are not able to do that and the travel could have been through the hallway or widespread, then we would have to close the entire building.
Okay, I'm thinking that I understand 92% of it, but 8% has flown over top of my head, and I can live with the 92%.
And
okay.
I appreciate that, because that 8% is the moving target that the state and the Department of Health changes on a weekly basis.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I have a question for Carol. Carol, I work in a district called La La Land, and I have a situation in La La Land where one of my employees resigned, left me, went on about their business. However, I want that person to come back, although they're in another
Ms.
district.
Carrie, I'm going to stop you for a minute because if you are wishing to discuss any specific personnel, it should be a topic for executive session, not for public session.
Oh, I thought La La Land was not. Oh, so if I'm talking about somebody in La La Land, it can be interpreted as somebody working in Greenburgh Central 7, right? Greenburgh Central School District. Okay, thank you, Carol. Appreciate it.
Okay, Terry, I see your hand is up. Oh,
Thank you, Carol. Yes, it was. It was up. I was a little slow getting unmuted. Dr. Reynolds, thank you for that answer to Ms. Carey's question. Part of your answer, you talked about how you go about the process for alerting parents when a child or somebody is diagnosed with COVID. And I know we as board members, we certainly get a correspondence from the superintendent on that. For those of us who don't have children in the school, we may not see that. The process that you described, was that sent out to parents?
The process of contact tracing and
no, not the process of contact tracing, but if I heard you correctly, you had two parts to your answer. One was the actual operational, if you will, or functional steps that were taken. Was that communicated to parents?
No, that was
it wasn't.
No.
Okay, all right.
Only because it's on a case-by-case basis, so the steps that have to be taken for each case can vary. And again, it's under the consultation and direction of the Department of Health. So we have to have prepared canned statement that has to go out, which is usually what you receive from the superintendent, and we tweak it just with all of the minor details. But something as elaborate as the operational could never be put into place.
Okay, so did the canned statement, for lack of a better term, did that go out to parents?
Yes, it did.
So a communication did go out to parents?
Yes, it did.
Okay, I just want to make sure because, listening to you here, I assumed incorrectly that something would go out to parents. You guys do a phenomenal job in communicating, but I also understand, you've just made me understand that it can't be as detailed for obvious reasons. But I just wanted to make sure that a communication did go out to the parents.
I can confirm that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Hold on, Ms. Carey, you can't see, but Tracy had her hand up.
Oh, you can go ahead, Cora.
Oh, no problem.
So I just wanted to, when Cora was talking and you started to explain the contact tracing procedure, I just wanted to thank you for that, because as a parent with a kid at Lee F. Jackson and at 2 at Woodlands Middle High School, I was a little confused and about why Highview only had the class closed. As board members, we do get advanced information about these sort of things as far as when things are going to be closed or not, but we don't get any identifiers or anything like that. So I was wondering how that works. I was wondering how the district does their contract tracing. So that was actually very helpful, and I do think it would be helpful to further explain, like you mentioned patient 0, you mentioned the 1 and a 2 person. That whole thing is very confusing to, I think, just people in general, in the public. Like if you ever have any sort of exposure in the Department of Health, you have to deal with them not in the schools. I think it's confusing when you add the schools into it and you add staff and you add non-instructional staff. This particular question did come up. I know I was speaking really fast, but if you heard my comments about the CEC committee, that did come up about non-instructional staff having to work and move to different schools if the whole school is shut down. It's very like, how would anyone know all of these things and the layers the way you just explained it? No one would know, and people would be confused. Staff may be confused. I don't know if you've explained this to staff, but definitely parents. I know as a parent with me, I was like, why is Highview's class just shut down? And my son, who's 6, had to be out of school for 2 weeks, but he wasn't exposed. So it's very confusing if you don't get all the details. Is there a way to explain to parents or the entire community, including staff, the 0, 1, 2 that you explained, and the way that we do our contract tracing so that people can understand the difference between a building shutdown, a district shutdown, a classroom shutdown, etc.?
So short answer is no. Again, because each case develops in its own way. So we get notification that someone tests positive for COVID. That one person is patient 0. So Corey tested positive COVID. I'm patient 0. We now have to trace where Corey went throughout the day. So if Corey is a student that just went right from the bus and came right to his classroom, didn't have any other interactions. We know that all of the students on the bus, we know that the bus driver on the bus, we know that the bus monitor on the bus, all of the teachers in the classroom and all of the students in that classroom are now patient ones. So all of those people have to quarantine.
No, I understand. I'm just wondering if there's
I'm giving
a
an
way.
explanation now.
Oh, okay.
So anybody else, siblings of Corey, parent of Corey, anybody who's come into contact with any of the patient ones, they're considered patient twos. They do not have to quarantine. But that's right now because of the determination of the Department of Health.
Right.
That could change next week, which is why we can't put this all into writing, because it's a fluid action. We don't know what's going to be determined as to what actions we have to take, because the Department of Health may change it. And quite honestly, it depends on who's sitting in the seat with whom you're speaking to at the Department of Health. They may tell you to do one thing in one situation, and somebody else with whom you're speaking, a doctor in the Department of Health, may tell you to take another action. That's why for us to write out a menu of items for each scenario, it would be a book.
Okay, and then I had another question that's separate. I don't know if anyone has another question about this particular. No. So my question, which I brought up before as well, is if we do decide to close the schools for an elongated period of time, which also came up at the CEC meeting, is the district going to look at providing essential childcare for essential workers specifically? Nurses, people that work in the hospitals, people that EMS workers, people that have to work essentially, transit workers, whatever, but people that have to work are deemed essential.
So I know that conversation already began with some of our local community agencies and with Dr. Chase specifically. I think if we were to come to that decision again, we would have to reignite those conversations, but that's not something I'm prepared to answer at this point.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Reynolds.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there any other?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
New business?
I'm waiting.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Carey, go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Reynolds, I need to ask you a question that's been on my mind. It's the situation that happened last night during the education wellness meeting where we were hacked and some young people got in and they decided to be extremely disruptive, abusive, and I think at one point pinpointed you and called you out of your name, the N-word. I was wondering why that was not reported to the police for investigation.
I was wondering the same thing myself, trustee. So thank you for presenting the answer, presenting the question.
That to me was an extremely horrible thing, and it should not be tolerated. And I'm surprised that board members did not insist that it be reported to the police, because I just don't understand why, I don't even know why Tech didn't report it to the police and turn over the whole thing to the police, because it was a terrible thing. And I personally, Dr. Reynolds, want to apologize for us not taking any action, because you of all people did not deserve that. And I felt very bad about it. And I'll be honest with you. I sleep very good at night, but last night I didn't sleep very good, because I kept thinking about why would we not report this, because it could be detrimental to the health of some of our people, because those things can turn into other violent things, and it needs to be stopped and nipped in the bud. So I will tell you now, I am going to, if nobody else will, I will call the chief of police myself, and I will tell him, because I'm not going to have this happen to me. I'm not going to be afraid to go to a meeting or walk out to my car because some crazy people decide that they're going to, call me out of my name and put fear into my heart. So I just want to say to you, I hope that that we can get to the bottom of this, and I thank you for being so patient.
I appreciate your acknowledgement, trustee.
Thank you. Terry and then Ashley.
Yes, could somebody please elaborate on what it is Ms. Carey brought up? I heard a little bit, I heard bits and pieces of stuff through the rumor mill. I thought it was a rumor, but obviously now that Ms. Carey has brought it up, there's obviously more to it than this. Can somebody elaborate on what this was about, what happened here?
I can. So the Education and Wellness Committee had a meeting yesterday afternoon, evening, and at the very beginning of the meeting, we were Zoom bombed, and I have to say it was the first time it happened to me, and it was so grotesque that I just kind of became completely, I kind of became paralyzed a little bit, quite frankly. Laser was able to get rid of the people who had hacked into our meeting. I have to say it did not cross my mind to go to the police because I'm not sure that they look into these things or that they really can, but I could be actually wrong. And I know that this morning Laser sent us an email to say that Zoom had updated. I don't know exactly.
Tanya, I think you.
She froze.
She's frozen.
While she's frozen, if I could just follow up, could somebody provide a summary report to the board about what happened? Obviously, it sounds like some ugliness occurred. Number one, I don't need a verbatim. I don't need to hear. Well, let me ask you this: is it recorded? Maybe was that recorded? It was recorded?
Laser.
Okay, so well, I'll just go back and I'll just ask Laser for a copy of it and get it that way. Ms. Carey, I just have one question. You said that it was a young person or young people. What makes you think it was young people?
They told me it was young people. They said it were kids.
Who was they?
The board members that were there.
Oh, okay. No, I thought you were there. I thought you were there. I'm sorry. I thought you were there as well. Okay.
I came in on the tail end of it.
Okay. All right. Okay. No. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, how do you all know that it was young kids who did this?
Well, we don't, but it sounded like them. I'm sorry, Dr. Reynolds, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. Thank you, trustee. So we don't know that the age of the persons who were involved. Based on what we heard, the voices sounded to be on the younger edge of the spectrum. When I say younger, I'm talking maybe, it could be early 20s, it could be late teens, it could be mid-teens, but somewhere around that age. That age is what you would surmise the person was based on the sound of their voice.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Reynolds.
Maybe answer, Madam President.
I think Ashley had a comment. I don't know if Ashley maybe as our tech guy knows a little bit more about these Zoom bombings and whether anything actually can be done in terms of law enforcement or not. I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Ashley, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes, go ahead, Ashley.
So what I was saying is so two things. First, thank you, Trustee Williams. You asked most of what I was going to ask because I was thinking the same thing. Obviously, I wasn't there. The second thing is actually related to what Tanya said. So typically, Zoom has had some issues in the past, and they've done a lot of tightening of security protocols to try to eliminate some of these things. But, there's a few things we can do. The first and foremost is requiring pre-registration and specifically tying it to email addresses. That way you can basically know in the future if someone does this, you know who did it, right? Because you'll know how they came in. Typically, tracing something like this is not a very simple endeavor, especially if there was no pre-registration involved. All they're going to find, depending on how cooperative you can get Zoom to be, and I don't think they'll be very cooperative. They have millions of calls per day that happen, so I doubt you'll get much there. But I think that if we haven't considered requiring pre-registration for our committee meetings, if we're seeing that this is a problem for us, I would strongly suggest that we can talk about that. Let's discuss that. Let's figure out if that's an option. Also, once the meetings have started, we can follow a process similar to what we do here. We can have a waiting room. There's a few different things that Zoom has added, passcodes, all those types of things. There's no silver bullet, unfortunately, to prevent this from happening. But I think if you put up enough barriers that will make someone second guess themselves when they decide to do something, because most of the time when stuff like this happens, in my experience, it's usually one of those things of opportunity where someone's bored and, hey, you know what, this meeting's open, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. But if you put up enough barriers and people actually people that decide to do these things have to do some work, most of the time they won't bother.
Thank you, Ashley. Tracy, you have something to add to this?
Yeah, so I was just going to also say, I know we're not, this is the first time that I think it's happened with our district, but we're not the first that this has happened to. And so I just think that we can, try to recover. I know that I think someone might have the video. So if, if it does want to get reported to the police, if the committee wants to report it to police, that would be fine, but I'm fine with it as a board member. But I think there is a video, so hopefully that evidence can be used and we can just be more careful. But yeah, unfortunately, until we get face to face, we might always have a risk of some sort.
Carrie, your hand is up on this same topic here.
Yeah, same topic, but new.
This is the last of it. So
new element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley kind of touched on some things. He talked about protocols, but rather than just leave it at the suggestion phase, I think we really need to move ahead. And I don't know if it's a request through the superintendent to Laser or Carlos, or in the case, since you're here, Dr. Reynolds, to our tech people to establish some protocols right away. I mean, this happened once. Let's not wait for it to happen again. I mean, I've heard of other people being Zoom bombed as well. This is our public meeting. This is, I mean, if we wouldn't tolerate it at a public meeting in public. Maybe we should ask for some security protocols, if not by Friday, certainly, at a very reasonable but expedited time, so that we don't have to go through this again.
All right. Dr. Reynolds?
I don't know. Should I respond, Madam President?
Dr. Reynolds, please go ahead.
Yes. So, Mr. Williams, Mr. Laser Alert's been all over it today. Some of the recommendations that have been made is that we do in the future have people pre-register, which we discussed tonight. That will eliminate it. The other issue that occurred last night is that the password was posted in the invitation, posted publicly. So we won't do that again. So I think now that we understand those steps or missteps, I think we have a plan of action in place that will secure us.
Thank you. Ms. Carey, are you on this one too? Because I just said that Terry would be the last.
No, but I said I don't have, you can't see my hand, so I was trying not to interrupt anybody while they were talking. My concern, and my only concern, is this. We take things like this very lightly. And I'm sorry that some people feel that, it's okay and let's just move on. But I think if we had contacted the police those who do these things would know that we're not going to allow them to interrupt or to do what they did. And I'm sorry. As a Black woman, I felt very, 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 very put upon when I heard what they called Dr. Reynolds. And I just feel that there's more to this than what we think. And I would like very much for us to take a more serious role in this and try to make sure. And I know that Zazer and whoever else is trying very hard to make this not happen again. But I want to make sure it doesn't. So let's make sure let's make sure we get on the good foot, okay?
Thank you. Ashley?
Just an FYI, I pasted a link to the security page for Zoom with some of their recommendations into the chat, as well as some of the recommendations in the chat. Dr. Reynolds obviously already covered a few of them. Blazer's obviously working on it. Just that.
Thank you, Ashley. Is there any other new business?
Madam President, is this going to be reported to the police? What is going to happen at this point?
Of course not. Of course not.
No, I was asking, and I'm
no,
sorry.
It's not. No.
So after having this discussion, I'm
going to attempt to have a conversation with the superintendent in regards to this matter. Is there any other new business that we have?
Okay, thank you.
So there's no other new business. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none. Thank you, everybody. Please have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.